Heyo everybody, Zian over here from Nintendo Life. Now, if you can believe it, Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings are now available to play through the Nintendo Switch, Super Nintendo app, and the NES apps that are offered through the Nintendo Switch online service. And since there's still a lot of people out there that haven't played these games, and I have a general soft spot for them, we thought it'd be fun to go and revisit our original reviews for both of these games. Now, even though Earthbound Beginnings is the first game in the series, we really do feel that people should play Earthbound on Super Nintendo first. You'll have a much better time. Just trust us. Now, our original review of Earthbound for the Super Nintendo was written by Dave Freer for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. Back in 1995, the second installment of Shigesato Itoi's much-loved Mother series, as it's known in Japan, received a Western release in North America. However, it skipped Europe and was renamed Earthbound. And it also sold pretty poorly in the West, most likely due to a high price tag and a weird marketing campaign. But after the lead character in Earthbound, Ness, became more popular thanks to Super Smash Bros. On N64, buying a second-hand Super Nintendo cartridge for silly amounts of money was most people's only option until the Wii U came to the rescue in 2013 with a Virtual Console release. This was followed by a release on new 3DS and an inclusion on the SNES Classic console, and is now playable on Nintendo Switch through the Super Nintendo Switch Online app. But regardless of whichever console you decide to play it on, this game is still absolutely worthy of your time, and then some. Earthbound sees you take control of a little kid named Ness, but you can name him Kate or Felix, name him whatever you want. And you'll set out on a quest to travel the land searching for 8 melodies to help defeat the universal cosmic destroyer Gygus, or Gigas, or Gigagas. Honestly, call him whatever you want as well. Earthbound is an RPG, but with a modern 90s American-influenced setting where vehicles are on the roads, department stores are visited, burgers restore health, cash is withdrawn from ATMs, and should a member of your party fall in battle, there are hospitals that bleed your wallet dry. Now, a large part of Earthbound's appeal is the story and its characters. It's entertaining right from the start, with your mother happy to let you wander off into the night to investigate a crashed meteor because, after all, you'd only sneak out if she said no anyways. Soon you encounter a bee-ish creature from the future named Buzz, and the adventure truly begins. Things get wackier as you progress, whether talking to a dog being possessed by the spirit of the game designer, or battling a group of policemen so they'll remove the roadblock to allow you to pass from the opening town, Onett, to Tucson. Naturally, the following towns are 3'd and 4-side, although there are plenty of other characters too, and you'll battle a range of characters and creatures along the way, such as coil snakes, annoying old party men, mad ducks, and a big pile of puke. Impressive to this day, though, is the game's soundscape, with regular sound effects rubbing shoulders with otherworldly ones to create something quite unique. The music features a range of instruments and sounds coming together to make a variety of different distinctive tracks, some fun, some mysterious, and some surreal-sounding ones too. There are some fantastic pieces here, and you'll want to plug in your headphones for the full experience. By comparison, the visuals might seem underwhelming at first. However, there's a charming simplicity that suits the quirky storyline, and the art style provides for a clean, easy-to-follow look as events unfold. There are decent, somewhat hypnotic background effects to complement the audio during battles, and a lot of variety on display, with good use of the SNES color palette for different times of day, as well as woodland, desert, and cave areas alongside the towns. Buildings look sufficiently different, and whilst there's little scenic animation, there's quite a range of characters, vehicles, and objects around to provide visual interest. Lots of text on a small screen could cause trouble, but it remains readable throughout. It's far from the most visually impressive game on the Super Nintendo, but it's charming enough to win you over regardless. No one walks away after spending some time with Earthbound thinking it looks ugly or basic. And there is a lot of game here to keep you occupied, with events unfolding at a relaxed pace as you move from one town to the next and take part in turn-based battles with enemies along the way. In battle, you can choose to attack, cast spells with your PSI ability, or use the goods in your inventory. And if you feel your team is strong enough, you can select the auto-fight command and let nature take its course. The game has lengthy sections that aren't really suited for quick bursts of play, and you'll likely welcome the suspend feature if you're playing on a platform that allows it. It's handy to tackle the game in whatever size chunks you feel like, and quickly repeat any battles in the late game, which can get pretty demanding. There's a sense that Earthbound was ahead of its time in many ways. Once you level up sufficiently, the game doesn't force you into boring low-level encounters. In fact, weaker enemies run away when they see you, and you can even defeat them instantly if you're strong enough. While the pacing can be a little up and down in places, the game respects your time and intelligence in a way that many titles of its era didn't. Your character's hit point counter rolls down slowly in battle, so even if you suffer more damage than you have hit points to withstand, you can still quickly heal yourself up before the counter reaches 0 and avoid failing in battle. Little elements like this give the game its unique, defining, and utterly irresistible character. For those who never got to experience the game back in the 90s, there was always the chance that Earthbound was overhyped nonsense, a game that couldn't possibly live up to its reputation as a quirky 16-bit masterpiece. However, as so many have discovered in the years since it's become more widely available, Earthbound, or Mother 2, whichever you'd like to call it, is still a touching, engaging, genuinely brilliant adventure to go on. A lengthy experience that's wonderfully humorous and fun from start to finish. It remains an absolute must-play for any Nintendo fan, and fortunately, it's much easier to play nowadays than it was for a long time. If you've never had the pleasure, get stuck in this immediately and get a better understanding of why hordes of fans won't pipe down about wanting Mother 3 in the West. We here at Nintendo Life give Earthbound on the Super Nintendo a 10 out of 10. Now, those words for the most part come courtesy to us from Dave Freer. As I mentioned before, he wrote this review, I think it was about 5 years ago for Nintendo Life. But I played through Earthbound completely as well within the past few years, and so I thought it'd be fun to kind of give a bit of my perspective and my reasoning as to why I love this game so much as well. Just to get a few of the negatives out of the way, I think the inventory management in Earthbound could definitely use an upgrade if we ever get a remake someday, and I think the game can get a bit too grindy at times. There's a bit of a level creep with bosses. I think sometimes it's very easy to get frustrated at a boss because you might not always feel like you're a high enough level because you didn't fight enough enemies on the way to it, and that can just be frustrating. But I do love the fact that you can see enemies on the overworld and you can choose to fight them or not. And like Dave even mentioned, if you are a high enough level and you fight an enemy that's super weak, it'll just get defeated on the spot, and you'll still get experience and you might get items from it. But my overall favorite thing about Earthbound really is the world and the characters and the writing. So often it feels like a 90s cartoon kid show where the writing it's definitely designed for kids, but as an adult when you're playing through it, it doesn't really treat you like you're a child. And there are so many things that kind of like with maybe Ren and Stimpy is a bad example, but I think with the writing with Earthbound, there are so many things that only adults will understand, and playing this as a kid versus an adult has to be a completely different experience, because like kids are probably laughing at the gross goopy things like the big puke monster, but where adults might just find that silly and gross, which is kind of what I felt. I thought it was stupid, but there are so many other enemies within the game that I did laugh at. And as far as the characters go, the NPCs in Earthbound remind me a bit of the ones in Pokemon, where Pokemon games would often reward you for talking with everybody because maybe you would find somebody that would give you an item or a TM, or they would want to trade a Pokemon with you, or maybe they would have some tidbit of information that you would want to hear about because it would help you on your journey. I think a lot of games in the Final Fantasy series would do this similarly, but I think they would more often talk about lore of the world, and so you might learn about some random character that you'll never meet, or you might learn about a summon that you can go and encounter in the overworld or something. But Earthbound still does this as well, where it teaches you how to play the game in the early stages, and it teaches you that you should go to the store to buy equipment. But these characters aren't giving you actual goods that you can hold in your backpack. Instead, they're rewarding you with knowledge, and they're making it funny and interesting. They're making you want to talk to them. And in a way, that feels like a reward in itself. And the thing that really helps this package all come together is the fact that it is accompanied by an engaging battle system and a fun overworld to explore and wonderful music that is so incredibly unique. And the fandom itself is something entirely special, something unlike anything else. So if you've always been curious to try Earthbound to find out what it's like, I feel like you really have no excuse now. Just give Earthbound a shot and let us know what you think. Now let's move on to our Earthbound Beginnings review, a game that was originally developed for the original Nintendo, but was canned in the US at least at the last minute. Now this review was originally written by Tim Latshaw for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. If you were an early fan of Earthbound in the West, you likely caught wind of a previous title made exclusively for the Famicom. Translated into English and perfectly playable, it oddly never made it to retail release on the NES. And yet, like a thing from some urban legend, a group of fans managed to buy a beta cartridge of the RPG off eBay in 1998 and release the ROM onto the internet as Earthbound Zero. It's pretty surreal, yet the fact the game took so long to appear officially on an honest-to-goodness Western Nintendo console somehow feels even more so. Earthbound Beginnings, as it's officially known in the West, is the localized version of the original Mother for the Famicom. Its official Virtual Console appearance on the Wii U eShop back in 2015 marked a victory for Earthbound fans who had maintained a persistent current of petitioning and support for many years. But it's also somewhat of an odd thing. Given the order most have played these titles, Beginnings can feel like a loving remake of the Super Nintendo game at times, as much as it's actually the parent of the series. There's the psychic bat-wielding boy and his 3 companions. You'll be consuming burgers and other foods to restore HP, collecting melodies, and there's an evil alien threat. The overall plots are different, but both are interesting and even surprisingly emotional at times. That's not to say, though, the experiences are both an exact match, however. Beginnings plainly shows its colors as an 80s-era RPG, with its sequel refining or improving upon many of its elements. Patience is absolutely necessary to make progress in Earthbound Beginnings. There's little to no hand-holding, and enemies are quite capable of taking your character out as soon as they take the first steps out of their idyllic rural home. You're going to die a lot while grinding for experience and for money to buy better equipment, but you aren't punished as harshly for dying, and it becomes part of the cycle. Money is the only thing you really lose when you die, and if you keep most of it in an ATM, it won't really feel like you've lost anything. New party members will also have to be babied in the early stages while they gain their footing in levels, which can prove to be pretty frustrating. And interactions are made through the menu system, and unfortunately there's no one-hit shortcut for actions or communicating as there is in Earthbound. This means every time you want to talk to somebody, you have to open up the menu and hit talk, or you have to click the check button to check the environment. At least there is one-press access to the status screen and map, which is nice, and this Western version includes a run option by holding down the B button, which actually, funny enough, just increases the speed of the entire game, but it works, and you're going to use it a lot. Now, the translation of Beginnings is more than serviceable, but feels flatter compared to the spirited localization of Earthbound. Certain other aesthetic and cultural changes were made for the West as well. The contemporary world is colorful and presented well for the NES era, although veterans of the series will know by now not to expect any action during battles. Static enemy portraits are all you get, but it's an intriguing gallery of often cute or bizarre rogues to discover. By now, it's a big part of the charm the games are known for, but won't win over anyone who'd rather see animations. The soundtrack is a cooperative composition by Hirokazu Tanaka and Keiichi Suzuki, and it really brings out the best of 8-bit audio technology, offering up songs ranging from catchy and bubbly to mysterious and atmospheric. It stands the test of time, although the bizarre Magicant theme might get grating after a while based on the time that tends to be spent grinding through it. And that'll be especially true if you're familiar with the glorious remix that exists in Smash. Now, it may feel like parts of this review may read more like a documentary, but much of the significance of Earthbound Beginnings, of Mother, lies in its spirit and the influence of such on subsequent games. Earthbound is hands down the overall better title available to folks right now, and those who have yet to play either should definitely start with that. If you do enjoy Earthbound, however, then Beginnings is well worth investigating, especially with features such as save states and rewinding, which can help take the rough edges off a formative but less refined game. Sticking through its older style of play with its difficulty and occasional fluctuations in balance will yield a fine story and a strangely transcendental sense of nostalgia, like a love letter written to a child who hadn't even been born yet. We here at Nintendo Life give Earthbound Beginnings on the Nintendo Wii U Virtual Console and Nintendo Switch Online service an 8 out of 10. Now, I just recently started playing Earthbound Beginnings on Nintendo Switch Online for my first time, and I think I'm about 10 hours into the game so far. And I'm enjoying myself. I like the humor. I think it's a very charming game. The combat can be fun, but I think the random encounters are so inconsistent. You might encounter an enemy, and then you might walk a frame or two forward, and you'll encounter another enemy. And then, like Tim said, once you bring new characters into your party, they're brought on at extremely low levels, and you have to go and grind around with lower enemies in order to level them up. And if they die, then you have to take them to the hospital, or you actually have to go to the hospital and get them back, and that costs money, and it's just kind of a headache. But I do think as far as the dialogue goes, there was still a lot of love and care put into them by the translation team. So if you consider yourself an Earthbound fan and you've already played Mother 2 and 3, and you've played Omori, and you've played Undertale and Deltarune, and you're looking for just something else, and maybe you want to learn what Earthbound Beginnings is all about, and you're curious, I think Earthbound Beginnings is served best as a curiosity. And if you've never played any of the games in the series, yes, this is the first one, but I think you should definitely avert your attention to Earthbound instead. I'm still glad Nintendo put this out and has shared it with the world, much like Star Fox 2 and Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, as it's important to be able to look back and see where these series have gone, how they've grown. But definitely play Earthbound first, and if you enjoy that, then sure, move on to Earthbound Beginnings. But of course, those are just our opinions. Feel free to let us know in the comments down below if you've played any of the Earthbound games before. Let us know what your favorite is and why you enjoy them so much. Or if you haven't, let us know what draws you to them, or what has interested you most about the series over all these years. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, then why don't you go ahead and pretend that subscribe button has a number 3 at the end of it, and then go ahead and click it. And whoa, you've suddenly released the subscribe button 3 in the West. Well, what have you done? Thank you. So just click that subscribe button if you like our videos. It helps everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zian from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.